Imagine yourself 1 year from now. You've tackled your prediabetes, you're eating well, staying active, and reducing stress. You've even made a few new friends, all because you took charge of your health and lowered your risk of type 2 diabetes. It's possible when you join In It Together SC. You can start by taking our online risk assessment. Find a coach to help you with real-life solutions. This can be you, and it can all start today. Find an online or in-person program. Visit inittogethersc.org to get a healthier head start on your future. Brought to you by the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina.
Coping with COVID and In It Together present Wellness Wednesday, brought to you by the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina and DHEC's Division of Diabetes and Heart Disease Management.
Coping with COVID with Trey Taylor.
Hey there, and thank you so much for joining us for Coping with COVID, updates on the pandemic and information to help you thrive and survive COVID-19. It is Wednesday. That means it's Wellness Wednesday from In It Together SC and the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina. Listen to this. Suicide is the 10th leading cause of death. 130 Americans die every day because they've taken their own life. Every 11 minutes, someone takes their lives, and depression affects 25% of all Americans. There is some good news. 80% show warning signs. So that means if we pay attention and show genuine care and concern, it is preventable. It's Suicide Prevention Month, and Zenethia Brown with the National Alliance on Mental Illness joins us. Also, Kim Gilmore with Omega Mental Health Association, and Jennifer Butler with the South Carolina Department of Mental Health. Also, a little bit later on, we'll talk to Dr. April Scott with the USC Mental Health Initiative. All of these ladies, thank you so much for joining us today on Coping with COVID. We appreciate you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you, ladies. We are going to join them coming up next on Coping with COVID. Don't miss out. But first, your COVID community updates. We're going to do a special edition about vaccines and booster shots with Dr. Jane Kelly. Joins us. She is the assistant epidemiologist with SCDHEC. And Dr. Kelly, thank you so much for joining us today. There's been a lot of news in the last couple of days about the booster and the vaccine for kids 5 and up. So let's talk about the booster first. Who should get a booster?
So right now, the people who are that the FDA has approved for receiving a booster dose are people who are immunocompromised. And by that, I mean people who, for example, have a really weakened immune system because they've had a transplant, maybe a kidney transplant, an organ transplant, and they take powerful immunosuppressants, powerful medications that suppress their immune system. But it also includes people who, for example, have lupus or other autoimmune conditions where they're taking medication that suppress their immune system. And there are some other entities as well. And basically, if you're not certain if you fall in that category, talk to your healthcare provider, talk to your doctor. It is recommended that people who have weak immune systems go ahead and get that third dose of vaccine now, as long as it's been at least 28 days since your second dose, that you don't need to wait until you're at a 6-month or 8-month point. Go ahead and get your vaccine now. Now, what about everybody else?
Right. That was going to be my next question. Yeah.
Well, that's where we are right now, waiting to hear the recommendations from the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, and a group called the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices. They are literally meeting today and tomorrow to discuss this very thing. Does everybody need to get a booster? We don't really have the data to say that. I mean, is it really important if you are fully vaccinated, but you have no medical problems and you're young? Is there evidence that you need a booster? Well, not strong evidence at this time, at least that I'm aware of. Perhaps FDA and the ACIP will uncover some other evidence. I'm sure they'll be talking about it. But right. I know that they'll also be talking about boosters for people who maybe don't get the full benefit out of vaccine because their immune systems are not as great as they used to be. And I'm talking about people age 65 and older, or people who have medical conditions like diabetes that maybe, gives them a little weaker immune system. Now, am I saying rush out now and get your booster? No, I'm saying wait until we hear the recommendations. Why? Because those recommendations are probably going to also include the when. So if you're immunocompromised, the answer is, you probably didn't get a good response to those first 2 doses. So talk to your doctor, get your booster now. But everybody else over 65, medical conditions, let's wait and see what the experts say, because I don't know whether they're going to say a booster will work best given at 6 months or 8 months. That depends on what they find.
Gotcha. So we calling it a booster, but then you call it a third dose. Is it just more of the same, or is it a different formulation?
It is more of the same. It's the exact same vaccine. So I made that distinction because for people who are immunocompromised, I just view that as they need 3 doses, period,
Gotcha.
End of sentence, and they shouldn't wait. Whereas for other people, the idea is to boost your immune system. And, people sometimes take that as meaning, then the vaccine doesn't work. Oh, no. We use boosters all the time. Think about all those pediatric vaccines. Your baby gets a whole series of the same thing over and over again, then finally gets that last booster for lifelong immunity or long-lasting
And that just builds
immunity.
up your system?
Yes. So it's complicated, when exactly is the best time to do that booster. But it often, you have to let the first couple of doses sort of your immune system mature before you then give them that sneak preview again, that booster shot.
Yeah. So do you get the same booster that you got of the whatever you got, whether you got Moderna, Pfizer, and then now I read this week that J&J now has a booster, a second dose, so to speak?
So let's take these separately.
Okay.
Pfizer is the only one that right now they are looking at booster doses.
Okay.
So and Pfizer, and the reason Pfizer is because they were out of the gate first, right? They were the first vaccine available, so they have more data. They've got more information on vaccine and the effectiveness of boosters specifically to their vaccine. So FDA and ACIP, they're going to be looking at the Pfizer vaccine. But Moderna and J&J, they are doing studies with their vaccines as well. And so you're right. In the news, we're hearing about what about boosters for Moderna? What about boosters for the J&J vaccine? But that's not going to be authorized this week. They are looking at that data right now.
Okay.
So folks out there who have had Moderna or had the J&J, hang on. We're going to hear, I think, that FDA and ACIP will also talk about, what to do for folks like that.
Okay, so for boosters, right now it's just the Pfizer. It is a third dose for those whose immunization systems are compromised. That's it right now. Hold the phone and find out if it becomes authorized for anyone else or one of the other types of boosters.
That's right. And the reason for it is we want to make sure you get the timing right.
Gotcha.
to get the optimal benefit, get the best benefit from the vaccine.
All right. So let's now talk about the vaccine that has been approved for children 5 and older. Which vaccine is this?
So hang on. It has not yet been approved.
Great.
In fact, they haven't even put in their application yet.
Oh, okay.
So there is good news here. The good news is that the Pfizer vaccine has been tested in ages 5 through 11 and has been found. Pfizer has reported that their data show very safe, highly effective, about the same symptoms after vaccination as you see in older kids and adolescents. But we haven't seen that data. They have to put it together in an application package and then present it to FDA. They haven't done that. They said that Pfizer has stated that they think they will have that package together by the end of September. And then the ball's in FDA's court. If FDA takes about the same amount of time that they had for older kids, for looking at age 12 through 15, then we could expect they're going to look at that for about 4 to 6 weeks before they make their decision. So it's not a done deal yet, but it sounds good. It sounds like we might have vaccine as early as late October, early November for kids ages 5 through 11. But don't rush out now to try and get your child vaccinated. It's not available yet.
It's not available yet, right. And this would be for 5 through 11-year-olds. Now, will there ever be, or is there any talk of a vaccine for a child younger than 5?
There's definitely work going on that right now. Pfizer, Moderna, J&J, they're all looking at vaccine for even younger children for 6 months through 5 years of age. But I think we're still a ways off from having information on that. That's going to take a while longer.
Right. So in summary, as far as the vaccine for kids, it is not yet approved. You're just hearing about it. Pfizer is putting together their information to submit to the FDA. If approved, it'll probably be sometime in November before it is ready for distribution to children ages 5 to 11.
I know I've seen some headlines saying we might have vaccine approved, authorized for use by Halloween. That would be great, but I suspect it might take a little bit longer than that. They don't want to rush a process looking at safety in children.
All right. Dr. Jane Kelly, Assistant Epidemiologist for SCDHEC. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on. So much information coming at us fast and furious. So we appreciate you coming on to sort through all of it and keep us up to date. I'm Trey Tailor, In It Together SC, and the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. Coming up next, depression, anxiety, and suicide prevention. That's next on Wellness Wednesday.
Imagine yourself 1 year from now. You've tackled your prediabetes, you're eating well, staying active, and reducing stress. You've even made a few new friends, all because you took charge of your health and lowered your risk of type 2 diabetes. It's possible when you join In It Together SC. You can start by taking our online risk assessment. Find a coach to help you with real-life solutions. This can be you, and it can all start today. Find an online or in-person program. Visit inittogethersc.org to get a healthier head start on your future. Brought to you by the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina.
You can eat what's good to you and good for you, too.
Yes.
Get the Dash for Southern Soul Cookbook free. All you have to do is ask. It's packed with delicious Southern-style recipes with a healthy twist.
Yummy.
You won't be able to taste the difference, but you will be able to feel the difference.
Yeah.
Inbox your email address to the In It Together or Tailor Made Productions Facebook page, and you'll get it straight to your mailbox. The Dash for Southern Style Cookbook and a Coping with COVID face mask. From In It Together SC, the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina, and Coping with COVID.
Coping with COVID with Trey Tailor.
Thank you for rejoining us for Wellness Wednesday from In It Together SC and the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina. I'm Trey Tailor. Hey, don't forget that we are streaming live on the In It Together Facebook page. Please go over there, hit like and share and follow. And don't forget that they have got so many great resources on that In It Together Facebook page and the website. We're also streaming live on the Tailor Made Production page. Again, please go over there, hit like and share and follow, and check out all of the great resources on the Tailor Made Production page. We're also streaming live on YouTube. Want to say hi to all of you YouTubers. Thank you so much for joining us. Please hit the subscribe button. And we also have a presence on Instagram. Throughout the show, you will be seeing streaming at the bottom several resources that are available, including SCDHEC has dates, times, and location for COVID testing in and around South Carolina. That's COVID testing, vaccinations, and flu shots. If you are a veteran, the VA is taking care of all veteran COVID vaccinations. Also, Kroger pharmacies are offering COVID vaccines. Check the screen for details on that. CVS and Target stores are two of the statewide retailers that are also offering COVID vaccines. And that also means the CVS locations located in Target stores. And the Brooklyn Baptist Church has a vaccine clinic that is open and available 7 days a week, no appointments needed for you to get your COVID vaccination. Now, if you need a ride to get your vaccine, don't miss your shot. The Comet is giving free rides to get your COVID vaccination. And if you or someone you know is having some challenges making an appointment to get their COVID vaccination, Get Set Up is giving free assistance to senior citizens. Now, if you had a loss due to COVID, FEMA is continuing their COVID funeral reimbursement. You can see that information on the screen. And several people are having some challenges with finances. SC Bar Association and SC Legal Services has a toll-free number and website for rental and mortgage help. Richland County has rental assistance program at richlandcountysc.gov. Lexington County has a bill assistance program. Dominion Energy and SC Housing also has bill assistance for rent and utilities, and SC Housing additionally has resources available for frontline workers. It's actually home buying assistance. Of course, SC Hopes, and we're going to talk more about that a little bit later on today, has a toll-free number for those folks that are having some challenges coping with COVID. I'm Trey Taylor, and once again, you are watching In It Together SC and the Diabetes Advisory Council. They present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. I want to thank everyone for watching. Please continue to post and share this information out so we can get the message to the masses, because we're talking about something that is really affecting a lot of people, more than you may realize. As I said in the open, it is Suicide Prevention Month, and it's the 10th leading cause of death in adults, second in those ages 10 through 34. 130 Americans die each day taking their own lives. Every 11 minutes, someone takes their life. Can you believe that? And depression affects 25% of all Americans. There is good news, though, because 80% show warning signs, so suicide is preventable. We're going to talk about it today with Zenethia Brown. She's with the National Alliance of Mental Illness. It's the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization dedicated to building better lives for those with mental illness. Zenethia, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Kim Gilmore also, Dr. Kim Gilmore also joins us. She's with Omega Mental Health Association. And then Jennifer Butler is with the South Carolina Department of Mental Health. And ladies, thank you so much for joining us today for this important conversation.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So what are the challenges that people are facing right now? Jennifer, do you want to open the conversation? You want to start?
Yeah, I'll be happy to. Thank you. We're all wonderfully human, which means that we're vulnerable to having difficulties with coping on any given day. And so some of the challenges that we've seen in looking at our data are folks are feeling more anxious. They're feeling more depressed. And this is across age groups. In South Carolina, from April to June of this year, those who were in the age range of 25 to 34 had the highest number of call volume to EMS for self-harm and for suicidal attempts. But those who were in the 35 to 44 age range had 123% increase from from that comparable time prior to that, pre-COVID or in the middle of COVID. And our 10 to 14-year-olds had an 87% increase in EMS and self-harm calls. So you can see across the board, we're really struggling with how this prolonged exposure to the implications of COVID.
Yeah, is it different? Are you seeing a difference, Zenethia, based on color, age, gender, or occupation?
Actually, we actually do have struggled all along with being a little bit more diverse. Being a member of the African American community, I can tell you that we don't discuss mental illness that much, and we've actually been struggling for the past year or so to reach out to the more of the African American community, Latino community, to get them more involved, the LGBTQ community. But we have not seen a lot of, I guess, an increase. But we have seen more people that have actually accessed our hotline, and and again, which is a good thing, because that means they are reaching out to us before the crisis sets in.
Yeah,
we do. Yeah, Go ahead.
Do you think, Zenethia, I'm going to stay with you because you said you have really tried to do outreach and it's a stigma. There's a stigma attached anyway, but for people of color,
It's a big stigma.
we're just not going to talk about it. We're just not going to talk about it. But do you think your increase has been due to your outreach efforts?
Yes, we've actually been done prior to COVID. We were actually doing a lot of presentations to the African American churches, to other community organizations, and that helped a lot. And it kind of opened people's eyes. And I actually shared my story about living with anxiety all my life, but not understanding that it was anxiety because my grandmother would give me scriptures, tell me to pray, go to church, to let go and let God, and those kind of things. And it wasn't
which is fine, fine too.
Yes.
But we're not going to sit up here and tell people don't pray, girl. But we
not at all. But I will say
to the mental health place.
But I will say that that gave me comfort, but it did not cure my anxiety. And so for me personally, it was going to see my primary care physician and talking about the symptoms and sharing, my story. And so when I do go out to the churches and out into the community, people kind of, they resonate with that and they understand that, yes, my faith is my comfort, but at the same time, there are other things that I can do to put myself into recovery.
Yeah. Dr. Gilmore, it's interesting. Zenethia said that, she was experiencing some things, but she was conscientious enough to recognize I am going through something. But how do you know if you're just having, just a little stress, or if it's at the point where you need some help? Or do you need to get some help even if you are having a little stress?
I think you need to get help even if you're having a little stress, not necessarily medication, but you also can talk to someone. We refer to a counselor, which is a non-judgmental place to go to and talk about things. And even if you're not sure, just reach out and get some help. And at that point, people can put you into the right directions.
Right. And is the reason because you don't want it to escalate?
Right. You don't want to get to the point where you want to kill yourself, or you haven't thought someone to kill yourself because you don't know what to do.
Yeah. In it together, SC and the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. I'm Trey Taylor, and it is Suicide Prevention Month. And we're talking today about anxiety, depression, and suicide prevention. So, Jennifer, let me ask, how do you know? What are some of the signs, the symptoms that manifest in people that make them think, or people around them recognize, okay, something's going on here?
Right. I think that the word I try to remind people to think about is change. So if you've seen a change in behavior, meaning perhaps someone is isolating more, or they're more depressed, or they seem to be not connecting as well, they're withdrawing, or they're having more risk-taking behaviors. If you see changes in the way they're talking, if they're talking more about death or about being a burden, or that I don't know if I can do this anymore, or I just can't take it. If you see a change in their emotions, the way they're displaying emotions, sometimes we only look for if they're getting more depressed, but perhaps this is someone who's been depressed for some time, and you start to see them feeling a little bit better. And that doesn't mean that that's not still something you should ask about, because sometimes that occurs because they've made peace with the decision to try and take their own life. So any change you need to check out, right? After 9/11, we had see something, say something. We have to do that with mental illness and with suicide prevention. If there's something within you that's noticing in someone that you love, that you're concerned, say something. Ask them if they're okay, and then stop to hear the answer. That's the other piece of this, is that, the same letters that are in the word listen are in the word silent. Right. So ask the question, check it out, and then stop and wait for the response.
Yeah. Zenethia, I saw you, shaking your head when Jennifer was saying that. What are some of the things that you encourage people to do at the National Alliance on Mental Illness?
Just like she was saying, ask people how they're doing and care about the answer. It's
Right.
not something that you do in passing anymore. You know, people are not well, and people are, you know, in right now we definitely have to pay attention to the change in people. But again, right now during COVID, you know, in earlier times when my friend would just start, you know, denying or refusing to go out with me, it would cause me to, you know, understand that maybe they needed help. But now during COVID, you know, people are just staying in because they feel it's safer. So, you know, you have to be able to reach out and understand and have the deep conversations. You know, okay, we can't go out, but let's talk on the phone. And if they
Right.
don't want to do that, then you can kind of tell that they're changing.
Right.
They're just disconnecting from everyone and everything. And you have to be able to pay attention to that as well. Like I said, it's tougher during COVID, but there are ways to be there for people. And
Right.
Yes.
humans aren't necessarily meant to be alone. You know, we are social. And so always just, you know, reach out to people, talk to them, listen, and care
Yeah.
about the answers.
Dr. Kim
Yeah.
Gilmore is with Omega Psychiatric Solutions. Dr. Gilmore, when is it, I guess, psychological and then psychiatric? Is there a difference?
Not really.
Really?
Psychologically and psychiatry is the same thing, but the psychiatric people are more into giving medicine and medication
Okay.
management, whereas psychologically they are doing like therapy with you. But I wanted to add something to the suicide thing. Sometimes people can have what we call covert suicidal ideation or suicidal thoughts, where they would say, "Well, if I go to sleep tonight and don't wake up, I'll be okay." You know, that is a suicidal thought for some people.
Right.
So definitely you have to listen at what they're saying and listen and probe, ask questions, you know, especially when people are talking about wanting to die, you know. So, you know, my job is to pretty much do medication management. I do some therapy,
Mhm.
but you know, there is help out there.
Right.
You know?
So when do you know if you need medication? I mean, you know, both Zenethia and Jennifer were talking about again the incredible resources that are available, and we've been flashing them up on the screen. All of the great resources that are available. But when do you need a little something more?
Well, when you've they were saying, when you feel like things are just not getting any better, or you feel more depressed, or like Miss Butler said, when you feel like they're doing better, and then they get that energy. Sometimes when they get the energy, that gives them the moment to go ahead and try to kill themselves. So any of those things, when you're feeling down and you just can't get rid of it, like I just can't get rid of this, you know,
Yeah.
I'm not getting any better. That's when you need to seek help.
Right, right. What are some good and bad ways that folks deal with stress? I mean, I think we probably know the bad ways are smoking and drinking and
Right.
Eating.
eating.
Eating,
You know, I didn't
yes.
think about that one, but
Yes. They have stress eaters. Yes.
yeah.
I'm a stress eater.
Are you Are you?
I am. When I get stressed, like when I was in school, I put on a lot of weight because I was stressed and I eat instead of eating steady. But yeah, like she says, drinking, smoking, all those things are kind of bad habits. So for some people, exercising, walking, taking a walk, talking to friends, those are good things that can do to help with stress, you know,
Right.
and not just keep it to yourself. Make sure you talk to people.
Right.
You
Dr.
know?
Gilmore, can you be a good stress eater? Can you like eat a lot of carrots and celery? Is that
You can, but most stress eaters are not going to eat no carrots.
I have my almonds and grapes right here.
Well, too many almonds can make you gain weight. So
They also know.
Anything in excess.
That's right.
Yeah. So what else, Jennifer, are good ways that people can deal with stress? I mean, you know, Dr. Gilmore mentioned walking, exercising, eating carrots, not almonds, of course, Dr. Gilmore.
Yeah. You know, for a lot of us, faith is
Yeah.
really an important coping skill.
yes,
And I know there's a lot of stigma sometimes attached to mental illness and suicide in faith settings, but South Carolina really is working on shifting that culture as well. But relying on your faith, listening to music that is comforting or is fills your spirit, doing things that restore your spirit.
Right.
Because when you're depressed, everything sort of is taken from you. So you want things that are going to add quality of life to you, and reaching out. And I would even say self-care is dipping your big toe into figuring out if something is going on with you. South Carolina is the only state who has launched an interactive screener for everyone over the age of 18 in our state, where they can take a mental health screener and it will be answered by a live person with the Department of Mental Health or DAODAS. And they can remain anonymous if they're still afraid about stigma or they're unsure. And they will be able to dialogue with that counselor in order to be able to reach the level of therapy they need. That could be mental health counseling and medication, but it could also be a referral to their church pastor or to a community group, a self-care group, like a NAMI group. So I think that self-care too is checking in on ourselves.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely. But I guess, and I love that you say that, and we put up the, the information about the free mental health check-in. But I think you've got to be, and you tell me, Zenethia and Jennifer and Dr. Gilmore, do you have to be conscientious about what's going on? I think, and I'm a woman, so I can only talk about as women, but I think as people, we're so busy doing stuff. We don't stop down to think, maybe I need to boom, boom, boom. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. And I will say on our end for support groups and everything, we have support groups of family members and we have support groups of people living with a mental illness. And I will say lately, we get more calls from family members of people living with a mental illness, because they're the ones that I think see it first and are more concerned about their loved ones. They actually see the change, whereas when you're in the change is gradual and you don't really recognize it or recognize that you need help. So, it is kind of up to the family members, the loved ones, to actually understand that there is a change. And I do get a lot of calls for help or resources from family members.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the conversations you're having here today are what will spark someone to think about what's going on with them. Yeah. So the more we talk about this, like I always tell people, I'll come stand in your driveway and talk to your neighbors about mental health and suicide prevention, or your family reunion. Wherever we gather, we need to have these conversations, because that will make people more mindful of how they're doing and coping.
Yeah, the other thing you said, Jennifer, that I wanted to piggyback on that Zenethia mentioned is the faith thing. Faith is so important to so many of us, and it can help. But I don't you think we need to eliminate the thought that it's either or?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we do.
You can love God and still go to a counselor or therapist.
Right.
God is not mad.
That's right.
Goes to your counselor. He's not jealous of that.
That's right. Absolutely. I think, we've heard from a lot of pastors. We've done some faith leader pilots this year in South Carolina, and we'll be doing more. And they are finding that their congregations are hungry for these conversations. In fact, one pastor said when she preached about suicide prevention, she was nervous about how the congregation would react because of stigma. Right. And she said someone came up to her and said, "You gave us permission to stop whispering about it."
Wow.
And so I think when we have these conversations in faith settings, we help people understand it isn't an either or, it is an and.
Yeah.
And I have talked to people in the faith community about depression and suicide, and you'll be surprised at the end of a conference or whatever you're doing, how many people come up and ask questions. Yeah. They might not ask them while you speaking or right after you speak, but at the end or anything, they just come up and ask so many questions. So I agree with Jennifer and Ms. Brown that we have to get out there in the community and in the faith community and talk to them about mental illness, depression, suicide, anxiety. And we just got to let people know there is help. And my philosophy is that God created things on this earth like medication, stuff like that, for us to help ourselves. So, you can have both, and we need to learn that we can have both. We can have our faith, and we can also have our mental health.
Right. And all three of your entities do offer those resources, not only for church members. You'll come into the church. I know you mentioned that, Jennifer, and you also, Zenethia, and also other resources. If you can just quickly, and like I said, I know that we've been flashing all of the resources on the screen. If each of you can quickly mention some of the resources available, because I want to make sure people know that if they need information, if they need tips, if they need help, if they need information on how to recognize, and if they need someone to come into their setting, whether it's a fraternity or sorority or church or whatever, that the resources are available. And Dr. Gilmore, can you start off with what you offer at Omega Psychiatric Solutions, please?
Well, we offer, like I said, medication management, mental health evaluation, and some therapy to people who have mental illness. And we usually see children 14 and up. I do adults only, but my other two partners do see children 14 and up. But there are suicide hotlines. The South Carolina Department of Mental Health have a mobile crisis unit that if people want someone to come out to talk to them, if they feel like they're in crisis, they go out and do that. And I've seen that happen. So, and they have a good team. But, mainly, you just give us a call. We'll make you an appointment, bring you in, talk to you, try to help you come up with a plan to help you feel better.
Okay, great. And Zenethia?
We actually go out into the community. We have, free support groups for family members of people living with a mental illness and support groups for people living with a mental illness. We actually have a new support group for parents of school-age children. And we kind of did that because so many parents were struggling with the virtual school and, COVID and just, having a tough time. And so we created this kind of community where parents can come and talk to each other. And we don't have all the answers, but, somebody on their might, and to talk to each other, is a good thing. And we also go out into the community. We go out and talk about our services. We talk about mental health 101, recognizing signs of potential crisis in your family member or anyone else in the congregation. We can come out to businesses and talk about mental health, in the workplace. So, we can do all kinds of community outreach for anybody, and everything NAMI does is free.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And Jennifer, the South Carolina Department of Mental Health?
Absolutely. One of the things I want people to know is we're talking about hard times, but in South Carolina within the last year, we have more mental health resources and more suicide prevention resources than we've ever had. So some of those include the mobile crisis team that Dr. Gilmore referenced. So we have mobile crisis teams 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in all 46 counties. You call that one number no matter where you are in the state, and you can either talk to someone over the phone, or if you need an in-person assessment, then they will send a mobile crisis team to you. We also have SC Hopes, which is a grant program that started during the pandemic to help individuals pay for their treatment. So financing counseling can be a barrier for folks reaching out. With SC Hopes, your counseling is paid for while you are at the Department of Mental Health. So imagine that you're getting your counseling completely free. The mental health department has never closed its doors. We operate mental health clinics in all 46 counties, as well as state hospitals, nursing homes, and veteran nursing homes. We also have that screener. And if you remember one thing, remember that hope.connectsyou.org, because it will have all the crisis lines on there. We help fund the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, the South Carolina Call Center in Greenville, as well as the crisis text line. South Carolina has its own code for the crisis text line. Please use the crisis text line and the lifeline. Both are available to you no matter your level of distress. And even if you're just having a bad day, reach out to someone and know that there are resources here. We do also offer lots of suicide prevention training, all of it free. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to our office. And then lastly, I want to say, if your community loses someone to suicide, we also provide post-vention support. So we go in with our partners from NAMI and with our local community counselors, and we go in with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And we wrap around resources around that community if they have lost someone to suicide, because that is also about prevention, because we know after a death, there is high risk for other individuals close to that individual who died by suicide. So remember that too, that in the hard times, we're there with you.
Yeah, all right. Zenethia Brown, National Alliance of Mental Illness. Also, Jennifer Butler, South Carolina Department of Mental Health, and Dr. Kim Gilmore with Omega Psychiatric Solutions. Ladies, thank you so much for this just heartfelt and informative conversation, and for all of the incredible resources each of your organizations provide. People not only in the state of South Carolina, but all over the world. Thank you, ladies, so much. I appreciate
Thank you
it.
for having this conversation.
Thank you for having the conversation.
Thanks.
Coming up, how we can help our teens, our college students, what's going on with them, and what are the schools doing to help? Dr. April Scott, Associate Director with Mental Health Initiatives at University of South Carolina, joins us next on Coping with COVID. I'm Trey Taylor.
Coping.
The Comet gives me a reliable source of transportation.
It's very convenient to me, and they have wonderful drivers.
It's clean, and it builds community. It's fun to meet people.
It makes me feel like really independent. It's just fun.
It's always going to be there, and it gets me everywhere I need to go.
We try to ride every single day. Comedy is our livelihood.
Let Palmetto Painting Services take the worry out of your next home painting project. We can paint anything. Our business is about interior painting and exterior painting. We offer services for residential and commercial properties. Restore the life to your home with a fresh coat of paint from Palmetto Painting Services. References are available upon request. Give us a call at 803-546-4570 today.
Computers, they're a part of our everyday life, but when they're not working, they're an everyday problem. So call Computers Unique, your everyday solution. 803-351-5821. Is your computer running slow, won't turn on? Do you need a screen replaced? Or maybe you just need another computer? Well, Computers Unique is your one-stop shop for all your computer needs. They have a wide variety of new and pre-owned PCs, Macs, and tablets. So call Computers Unique, Dutch Square Mall. 803-351-5821. 803-351-5821.
How will you remember the year 2020?
You're watching Coping with COVID.
Losing my job.
Working 12-hour shifts in a mask.
Losing my grandma to COVID.
COVID has claimed thousands in South Carolina and strained our health system, schools, businesses, and families. If you're struggling and need to talk, call SC Hopes. That free call can help put you in touch with people who can help. This goes for healthcare workers, teachers, restaurant employees, parents, anyone and everyone. SC Hopes, mental health and addiction support for challenging times.
Hey there, you're watching Coping with COVID, updates on the pandemic and information to help you thrive and survive COVID-19. Wellness Wednesday is brought to you by In It Together SC and the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina. Don't forget, we are streaming live on the In It Together Facebook page. Please go over there. Not only like and share the information, check out all of the great resources that are available if you or someone you know has diabetes or pre-diabetes or just needs some great health information. They've got a wealth of sources over there on the In It Together Facebook page. Of course, we're also streaming live on the Tailor Made production page. Please go over there. Again, hit like and share and follow. And not only can you watch Coping with COVID Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and First Monday with George Wallace, you can also get all of your COVID-related updates. We're also streaming live on YouTube. I want to say hi to all of you YouTubers and thank you so much for watching and subscribing to the YouTube channel. Well, it is a mental health awareness week and suicide prevention month. And we've been talking all day today about depression, anxiety, and suicide prevention. We are going to turn the conversation to our young people, our teenagers, our college students. And to join us, April Scott is here. She is Associate Director of Mental Health Initiatives at U of SC, where she's responsible for decreasing public and personal stigma surrounding mental health conditions. And there are so many: coordinating mental health outreach, training and education to faculty, staff, and students, and working with campus administration to improve efforts to improve students' well-being. April, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
Oh, me too, because, first of all, the stigma surrounding mental health, particularly in communities of color, but does that also transfer to the academic community?
Absolutely. Because we cycle through, we go from being students to academics. So it's definitely transferred into the academic community, but also there's so much pressure in the academic community and so many hurdles and obstacles. And I think the general public got a little bit of a witness to that with the controversy over Nicole Hannah-Jones at was it UNC?
Yes.
And that's a tip of the drama that happens within academia. And you can only imagine the type of stress and self-doubt that places on your faculty members, that you could be a Pulitzer Prize winner or Nobel Prize and still get denied tenure. So what is little old me?
Right. What chance do I have? Yeah. And that's so interesting that you mentioned that particular case, because you're right. I think with mental health, and you tell me what you think about this, people think it happens to them, or I can't be crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So part of it, I think what has happened is we have not always had the words or the language to call out what's going on. So we think it's new, or we have only identified really severe cases, the guy in our neighborhood who wasn't quite right. He just walked all day. We think of that as mental illness. We don't think about when grandma had to take her nerve pills. That's mental health. That's a mental health challenge. We didn't have the language. She had a nervous breakdown, or she just not right, or don't make too much noise around your uncle. Don't make certain noises. That's PTSD. We just didn't know what to call it.
Yeah.
So now that we have the language for it, it's helping, but we got to undo a lot of that misinformation that we were fed growing up.
And the other piece is, as it relates to this conversation, is you too young to have any problems.
Yes. Which is so interesting. You just made me think. My master's thesis was on adults' ability to detect depression in teenagers. Because often teens, they get dismissed as, oh, you're just moody. It's just puberty. And I was like, no, it's depression. We we need to pay attention to that. But a lot of times our youth and our children, they're dismissed. It's like, well, what you know about life?
Right.
How dare you? What do you have to be sad about? You don't have bills. How are you depressed? You have no responsibilities.
Right.
But we know children feel things. Their emotions are just as valid. So do teens. And what they don't have that we have is adult experience. We have the life experience to pull on and say, okay, I've been through this before. I know this isn't the worst thing that can happen. Whereas a 16-year-old, that breakup is the worst thing that has happened to them.
Right.
So perception is reality. So if their perception is that this is the worst breakup, then that's real for them. It doesn't matter that we know as adults that you're going to have about 3, 4, 5.
Right.
Keep living. So being able to honor and respect their perspective and listen when they're talking to us is so important.
To what they are experiencing right now, because as you said, not only, as adults do we have the learned experiences, we have been there. So we can't forget that, you are dealing with some of the same stuff. I mean, they're dealing with some different stuff now, but some of the same stuff that young people were dealing with, and the pressures of what your parents want for you.
Yes. And we know that the onset of mental illness from research happens at about 14 years old.
Wow.
For about 50% of the population. And then for another 25%, it happens around age 24. So there's so many things that are happening undiagnosed. So if we think 14, that's around middle school, kind of going into high school. So half of our population are having their first kind of mental health challenges, and then it happens again. It spikes again in college. So yeah, it's real. It's out here.
Yeah, Dr. April Scott joins us. She is Associate Director of Mental Health Initiatives at the University of South Carolina. And, you said something else that I want to talk about before we really kind of talk about some of the challenges for our students, is that if it goes undiagnosed, that's the big thing. Because, as we talk about becoming an adult, if it is not taken care of, if you don't know how to use those coping mechanisms as a child, you do end up as an adult really maybe with a childlike maturity level of how to deal or how not to deal with stress.
Yes, it worsens. It doesn't just go away.
Right.
So it's super important to pay attention to it when it first happens. That's why stigma is so important to talk about, because if we normalize the conversation, if we make it a regular part of the daily check-in, how's your heart today? What's on your mind? How are you sleeping?
So important.
Tell me something that made you smile. You haven't seen yourself. All of those are mental health check-ins.
Wow. I love that. I love the mental health check-ins. And I want to come back to that, because I do want to know who does those mental health check-ins. Do we do that for each other? How does that work in the course of the day so that we are checking ourselves and other people that we love and care for?
Yeah, I think it's super important to do those check-ins with yourself, either in the morning or at the end of the day. And it's so funny. I just asked my students this other day. I was like, do you talk to yourself in the morning when you first wake up? And Minnie was like, no. So you should start. Like, how are you setting your day? Do you check in? What kind of day do you want to have? What kind of pep talk? And then at the end of the day, do you remind yourself of the things that went well? So something as simple as checking in with, what am I proud of today? It doesn't have to be huge. It can be, you know what? I ate the lunch that I brought today. I did not go out and buy food. I am proud of, I turned in my homework assignment. And so what's that doing is that's getting us used to paying attention to the good things, because many of us filter out all the good and we focus on that one bad thing, that one coworker, that one friend who ignored us. But being able to say, you know what, today wasn't bad. I had a bad 5 minutes, but my whole day wasn't bad.
Yeah.
And then checking in with other people is super important. It's simple. So tell me how you doing. No, for real. And I always add that, no, honestly.
Right, because it's easy to say, oh, I'm fine. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you? Sometimes will say it before the person has even finished.
Exactly. Because it's just kind of like, you just say it.
Yeah, it's like a reflex.
Because you don't even think, April, I think you don't even think people won't want to hear that. People got their own stuff. They don't want to hear what I got going on.
Yeah, and I'm a firm believer, and I do this. I tell people this, even with anything you go after, let them tell you no. Don't tell yourself no before they did. So people may not want to hear, but let them tell you that. Don't assume for them, because we do that so much that we don't even open up. And most of the times our friends, the people who care about us, they want to know how they can help. They want to know how we're doing, but we get ashamed.
Oh, we do. Yeah. You know what? Not only may they want to know, it may open up their comfort level to talk about what's going on with them.
Yes, because now they know, okay, it's not just them, because you've talked about it. So what they're experiencing is not novel. And that's so important for parents and adults in our kids' lives to do that with their kids, because I think sometimes, when we were teens, we thought our parents didn't know what they
didn't know anything,
or our guardians or our grandparents. So I think it's important for the parent in the life or the adult in the life to share, like, I remember when I was 16, I had a really hard time making friends, or I had really low self-esteem, so that they know there is nothing new under the sun. It may look a little different. We didn't have social media.
Right.
But the challenges, we had those too. And being able to share that with our teens and kids, so they know that, one, they're not alone, and two, they can talk to us about it.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so important. We're talking to Dr. April Scott. She's an associate director of mental health initiatives at U of SC. She's passionate about normalizing conversations about mental health and making treatment accessible, especially for communities of color. Now, speaking of that, Dr. Scott, what are some of the challenges for our students? You're over at the University of South Carolina, so you're seeing students of all ages, races, gender. What are they experiencing right now?
Stress is probably the number one challenge of our students. And a lot of it is related to academic problems and procrastination. So a lot of poor time management. Hello. And lack of coping skills. And we also are seeing students who are coming in with pre-existing mental health conditions. And trying to help them make that transition from high school to college and that emerging adulthood and just dealing with the stresses of life. And they're doing it during a pandemic.
Right.
So that adds another layer to it. And I think we all can relate. We all have had those days where the simplest tasks are taking forever for us to complete. It's like, why is it taking me so long to write this email or to write this paper or to do laundry? And it's because we're living in a pandemic. And in a pandemic, your brain's or your body's goal is to survive. Anything after that is secondary. So homework, secondary. Your brain is focusing on, I need to keep you safe and alive. Everything else is not a priority. So I think what happens is students forget that we're in a pandemic because it's nice outside. There's no smoke and fire.
Right.
So
and it's been all year. So surely it's gone by now.
We're in the second academic year of this now. So there's a football game, there's parties. What pandemic? So being able to remind, like, your body knows. And that's gonna add to those challenges. Also loneliness. Loneliness is a big problem with our college students.
Is it lack of friends, or is it a boyfriend, girlfriend lonely, or is it I'm away from home, or all of it?
A lot of it is lack of substantial or substantive relationships. So lack of friendships. So they may have several like friends online or associates, but those meaningful relationships is what they are lacking, and not really knowing how to make friends. I think sometimes students feel like, oh, when I go to college, I'll just find my best friend, or I'll just stumble. And it's like, no, it takes time, and it takes that risk of talking to people or engaging or going out and joining organizations. And that can be very tough if you're very introverted and you just never had experience doing that. And I think with when we were hybrid or virtual, that added to that kind of challenge of being able to make those connections. So now we're kind of coming out of that, but we lost a whole year for students to be able to make those, orientation friendships and that first week of class relationships.
Is that intensified, you think, April, now because our kids are more virtual? I mean, the pandemic aside, and I know you know this, you can be in a room with teenagers and they are not even talking to each other. Their faces like this.
Yeah.
Why aren't you talking to each other?
Yeah. And not only absolutely social media, and even when I can be a data nerd, but you'll see research that shows like the shift in social interactions across the decades and the invention of the smartphone. So many things were impacted by that. So although this is the generation that is the most connected to people, like they can have a best friend in Bangladesh, or a friend in Bangladesh. They're the loneliest because social media doesn't often foster substantial relationships. It's very surface level. And then social media, you are exposed to people's highlights. So you see all the good that's going on. So it's called compare and despair. So they're scrolling and they're comparing, and they're then getting to that despair state of like, well, I don't look like them. My home isn't as cool. I didn't get invited to this party. They're having dinner with their family. They then compare themselves to all of the highlights that they're seeing from someone else's life. So absolutely.
In It Together, SC and the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. We're talking to Dr. April Scott. I'm Trey Taylor, and we're talking about anxiety, depression, and suicide prevention with our young people. April, are all of these things that they are experiencing making them think that it's too much, that they do want to end their lives?
Yeah, so suicide prevention is so multifaceted. And what we do know about suicide is those who attempt to take their life is very rarely one reason. It's usually a lot of things. There's a lot, it's like a snowball effect. But what we do know is those who are thinking about suicide is because the amount of pain that they are in, it exceeds their ability to cope or what they think they're able to cope with.
Right.
So when I talk about suicide prevention, it's heavy on the resources because we want to help people understand that that feeling is temporary. That feeling like I can't do this anymore is very real, but it doesn't last always. So if we can get them connected to therapy, to the right groups, to the right doctors, so that we can help them see that you can cope with this. We can get you some resources to help alleviate that pain. That's the goal. So yes, we know depression, the high rates of depression can be connected to thoughts of suicide. Same thing with anxiety. Financial troubles can be predictors of thoughts of suicide, but it comes down to pain and resources. So when that pain is to the point or it surpasses their ability to connect, that's when we're in a danger zone. We want to make sure that everybody knows that one, you are not alone. You are only a phone call or a text away from someone, whether that's the crisis text line where you can text help to 741-741 and you're connected to someone, or you can call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. And we promote those to all our students. We have those numbers on the back of our ID card. So all they have to do is look down at their ID and that information is there.
So are there, classes, required classes? I mean, what are you all implementing? I know you said you've got the 741 on the card. They know that these things are available, but how are you communicating that information to them to say, this is an option for you? They could think 741 is the pizza place. You know what I'm saying? How do they know it's okay to call?
Yeah, so so that's pretty much my office. That is really what my department is how do we, that outreach component. So we deploy this information in a number of ways. We have a podcast on campus called Hear Me Out, where it's hosted by students who talk to other students and staff about their own failures and mental health. We just recently had the president of the university on, so he'll be on the episode tomorrow that's released. We have mental health ambassadors, and these are students who have lived experience with mental health, mental illness, with even suicide and substance use recovery, who tell their story to other students and talk to them about how they recover, how they went through it, and they remind them of the resources. We do a lot of tabling events. We are working with athletics. We are partnered with them to do a week dedicated to Mental Illness Awareness Week. We're observing that. So we're going to have a lot of events where we talk about the resources available. We have a training that students can take online. It's called Cognito at Campus, where they learn in about 30 minutes how to recognize when a friend is in distress and also how to respond. It's almost like a Sims game, but it's educational. So our thing is to talk about mental health, but do it in an engaging way where people don't feel intimidated about it. So we have programs, we have fun events, but it always boils down to, at the end, we want to make sure that you know the resources. So my goal is that every student on this campus, every faculty member and staff can name 3 resources. We have more than 3, but if you can at least name 3 at all times, that's our goal.
Before you leave, April, I do want to ask, and you said that you have kind of a game like this. How do you recognize that your roommate, your friend, your student is having some challenges? at the beginning, middle, or end stages to where you need to do something about it. And whatever that means, do something about it, you know?
Yeah. So you always want to look out for changes in behavior. That's usually the first warning sign is they begin acting differently. So withdrawing, they're not getting out of bed. They're not going to class. They no longer get enjoyment out of the things they used to. So maybe they were a big basketball fan and now they don't go to any games or they're not going to practice. You see a decline in their work. So from the teacher perspective or the parent perspective, they're not performing at the same capacity. It's not because the work is difficult. You're just noticing that motivation is changing. They're angry and more irritable. So we often dismiss anger as just a behavioral problem. And usually underneath all anger is hurt. And particularly for our men or people who identify as men or males, they're so socialized that anger is the only emotion that they're able to express. So it's easier for them to punch a wall than to say, you hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
So those are all warning signs that something is going on. And I have an acronym that I use, LIVE, which is listen. So listen to what they're saying, inquire. So ask questions. How long have you been feeling like this? Because you want to know how severe the distress is. Validate is so important. So validating is something as simple as you acknowledging that the pain they're in. You don't have to agree or understand.
Right.
Particularly sometimes working with teens, you don't understand.
Yeah, I don't get it.
You don't get it, but you don't have to get it to know that it's real for them.
That's right.
And then encourage them to get some help. So that may mean you walking with them to make an appointment, you helping them make that phone call, but you want to make sure that it ends with them getting connected to some type of resource. So you're going to listen, you're going to inquire. So you're asking, how long have you been feeling this way? Are you having thoughts of taking your life? Have you ever thought about ending your life? Thank you for sharing this with me. I know this was hard. So you're validating, and then you're encouraging them to get some help.
Right. Dr. April Scott is Associate Director of Mental Health Initiatives at the University of South Carolina. She is committed to normalizing mental health and helping clients find their inner strength and increase their resilience on their journey to wellness and well-being. This has been such a great conversation. I want to get you back on. You've got a podcast with 3 other mental health professionals. And this is just so important, Dr. Scott. This is so important because, look, COVID aside, we are having some serious challenges. And I think the biggest issue is just recognizing you got one, and then seeking help, knowing that it's okay to seek help. It's okay to pray. You got to pray. I'm a big prayer, but go seek some help.
You can pray and go to therapy.
You can go and you can pray on the way.
Sometimes your therapist might pray with you. Depends.
Mine does. Mine does. April, thank you so much for joining us today. Like I said, I look forward to bringing you and your podcast mates on. And I would love to get some of the students on that from the Hear Me Out segment. That sounds like great. And those mental health ambassadors, that's amazing work you guys are doing at the university.
Yes, I would love to.
All right. Well, let's do that. Thank you so much for joining us. In It Together, SD and the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. I'm Trey Taylor. Dr. April Scott will be right back with more Coping with COVID. All right. What a great interview with April Scott with the University of South Carolina. Want to say Denise Talbert said that she finds that these programs work for her. However, at the end of the day, when I was alone, I'd fall low. I never opened fully in groups nor with a counselor. As an adult, I find it comforting now to have learned and implemented certain meditation techniques that helps me heal myself. She wanted to know if this is an option for middle school, high school, and college students. Denise, I will connect you with April with the University of South Carolina, and also Dr. Kim Gilmore, who was in the first segment. She has the Psychiatric Solution company. It was Omega Psychiatric Solutions. And she also talked about that too, because meditation is definitely a great a great source to have. Listen, coming up tomorrow on Coping with COVID, Byron Gibson, No Justice, No Peace, with the South Carolina Fifth Circuit Solicitor's Office. He's going to be on. He's on every month, and he's going to be talking about some great stuff, upcoming town hall meeting. And then, of course, earlier this month, they did the warrant the warrant resolution program. So he's coming up tomorrow. Then Friday, Kia Brown with a Sweet Shot is going to tell us about her journey of starting her own business. And then if you want to start your own business, Aisha Driggers with the City of Columbia Office of Business Opportunities is going to join us also. So listen, if you have a story or initiative that can help someone cope with COVID, please go to the Tailor Made production page on Facebook and inbox me. We would love to feature you on Coping with COVID. If you have a product or service that could help someone cope with COVID, please email copingwithtraytaylor@gmail.com. We would love for you to be a proud sponsor, just like SCDHEC, In It Together SC, the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina, the City of Columbia Office of Business Opportunities, Palmetto Media Connections, the Comet Bus System, Agape Counseling and Training Services, Palmetto Media Connections, also Javis Tax Service, and the Fifth Circuit Solicitor's Office. As always, I leave you with a reading from Jesus Calling today, September 22nd. It's September. I picked up August. September 22nd. Jesus says today, trust me and refuse to worry. This is good for today. For I am your strength and your song. You're feeling a little wobbly, looking at difficult times looming ahead, measuring them against your own strength. However, they are not today's tasks or even tomorrow's. So leave them in the future and come home to the present, where you will find me waiting for you. Since I am your strength, Jesus says, I can empower you to handle each task as it comes. Because I am your song, I can give you joy as you walk alongside me. As you walk in the light with me, you have 1 foot on earth and 1 foot on heaven. That's your Jesus Calling for today, August 22nd. I'm Trey Taylor. Until the next time, I wish you peace and abundant blessings. Take care, stay well, and please get your vaccine and wear your mask over your nose and under your chin. I'll see you tomorrow.
Coping with COVID and In It Together present Wellness Wednesday, brought to you by the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina and DHEC's Division of Diabetes and Heart Disease Management.
Coping with COVID with Trey Taylor.